The first stretch of opens in for Star City this year are pretty East Coast and Midwest biased. They're in Orlando, in Columbus, Baltimore. I believe there's one in Tennessee early in
Yeah,
February,
Nashville.
and one in New Jersey. So uh, it's very easy for Chris to make a push here, attending all the events. There's not really anything going out on the West Coast or in Texas or anything like that until later on in the season, and all it takes is one good finish, and these events starts becoming very easy to rationalize going to all these events because, again, Chris is making a push to play in the Players' Championship later this year. All these points add up, and he can give himself a really big early advantage by just showing up to everything, playing, and doing well in a couple of them.
And he does have the benefit of some players maybe not traveling as much as he does to make this push. Now, the person who's in second place on our leaderboard right now, Brian Bronwyn, well, he top 8 this weekend.
Yes.
So he's chasing William Huey Jensen right now for the #1 spot on the leaderboard, and Brian is well on his way here.
If I recall correctly, I believe Trey has a Grand Prix win, Trey Van Cleave, a Grand Prix win many years ago in Old Extended with 3 deuce. This may be an internet-worthy search here, but if I
Showing
recall,
your age.
we could be talking like well over 10 years ago,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, but I could be confusing him with someone else.
Pretty impressive, just the knowledge, Bing, that you have. See, Van Cleef on the right, 7-2-1, Mono Blue Devotion. VanMeter sitting at 7-3 with Green Red Monsters. Again, neither of these players are going to be able to make top 8. Unsure if they'll be able to make top 16 or top 32. Again, there's a ton of people here, so you don't know how things are going to break for these guys as far as the finish goes and cash stuff like that. But playing for the Open Series points right now is certainly important. And we do want to give you guys at least one good match to see before we did wrap up the day. So hopefully it'll be that. You see Chris with the soul.
Trey is known for a very ponderous pace of play, so what you're seeing right now is not. It's not the exception to the rule, certainly.
Sure. Looks like he's going to mulligan again, so it looks like he'll be starting off with 5 cards this go around.
And Trey's another player that it wouldn't surprise me, again, given the location of the early opens and his resurgence onto the scene. Another player I wouldn't be surprised to see at many more events in the near future.
Now, right now, taking a look at the Star City Players Championship leaderboard, Huey Jensen, I'll start there, 152 points. Brian Brondwin, 127 points. If Brian, is able to get a win here, that's 20 more Open Series points. It was up to 147. That puts him in really, really close striking distance of Jensen. It really is really interesting because, to see how this is going to go through Season 1, who's able to kind of take over the leaderboard and all that good stuff.
Yep. And, if Jensen's not willing to travel these events early on, then Brian can make a push and easily get himself in the first place if he's attending all the events.
Yeah. Of course. Wow, you got it right.
I was right.
3 deuce at Grand Prix Philly.
Do you know why the deck was nicknamed 3 deuce?
Now, I used to know the answer to this question. God. No.
Because you regularly put Rancor on Dwarven Miner, so you made a 3-2. That's where the name came from.
Wow. Okay, that is maybe not the answer I heard. That's awful.
Yeah.
It's a great deck name, though.
Yeah.
I will say that. I think 3 deuce is one of the best deck names ever.
Because you made a 3-2.
Yep.
With 2 cards and 3 mana, you could make
Dwarven Miner blows up a non-basic?
Yeah, it's Stone Rain to non-basic.
Yeah, okay. It's like, it's like Dwarven Blast Miner. That's where that card came from.
Right.
It's the actual card that doesn't have morph. Okay.
Correct.
So here comes 6 cards for Trey. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's just his first mulligan of the match. I do want to correct myself there, as Chris is going to play a Mutavault and pass the turn back. There is a Cloudfin Raptor for Van Cleave. Kick it back over this way. You see Chris does have a Stomping Ground in his hand, actually 2 of them, so he does have access to green mana, but in case he didn't want to fire up the old Mutavault on turn 2, he was going to have access to do that.
I was somewhat curious that he wouldn't play Stomping Ground there, but I guess there is some percentage chance that this turn 2 is just attacking.
Yeah.
Maybe throw his opponent off the scent for a little while.
And there is a Scavenging Ooze before VanMeter has passed the turn back. So Van Cleve's going to untap that island. He'll take a draw step here, see if he can evolve the Raptor. You do see a Frostburn in his hand, so it looks like we're going to have a 1-2 Raptor on the second turn.
Pretty solid mulligan to 6.
Yeah, can't complain. Might have another 1-drop in his hand that he wants to deploy first. We'll see. Yeah, these guys tap 2. He's going to go with a Tidebinder Maze to shut down the Ooze and evolve the Raptor and come across for 1.
And you see the evolve there.
And in for 1. So VanMeter's going to go down to 19 here, and his Scavenging Ooze is not going to be doing much attacking or blocking moving forward. Going to have to get that Tidebinder Mage off the table first. But luckily for VanMeter, he drew another copy of Scavenging Ooze, so no problem. Pass the turn back.
But we've seen, the green-red monster deck so far be a little soft to flyers in some of the matches we've seen.
Yeah.
So this is a really good start for Trey.
Here's another evolution of the Cloudflare Raptor via Frostburn Weird. Across it will come the Flyer, attacking for 2 in the air. VanMeter with no blocks, of course, going to knock Chris down to 17. And passing the turn back. So VanMeter will take a draw step here. He's going to find an Elvish Mystic. And you see Chris' hand now. He's got a Gorkline Rampager. He's got that Mystic, a Xenagos hanging out over there. So he's certainly got some things to do on this turn. He just needs to figure out how he wants to navigate this game.
I think this seems like a reasonable spot to try to land Xenagos. He does need to overload Mortars at some point, so the mana potentially matters. And there's not a ton else to do that's hugely productive this turn.
So Stomping Ground again. The Stomping Ground, the Xenagos, the Elvish Mystic, the Dragon, and the Gorkline Rampage are the 5 cards that VanMeter is looking at here.
Yeah, there is, of course, the issue of the Raptor potentially evolving into a 3/4 and just taking care of Xenagos. So ideally, Chris would like to get a bit more of a sealable board, but with no answer to the Flyer in hand.
I'm going to play this untapped, so it feels like Xenagos is going to come down.
He's going to risk it.
So Xenagos is going to come into play. He's going to tick that up to 4. And now he's going to be able to deploy the Elf and just pass the turn back with the Dragon. So basically, what happens here is if Trey's not able to kill the Xenagos this turn, it's a huge turn for Chris because he's going to be able to generate a ton of mana, and basically get all the stuff out of his hand and kind of go crazy with the Dragon and things like that. If you're Chris, the card you're trying to fade right now is Master of Waves, but you see in Van Cleave's hand that he has one currently.
Yes.
So that's what you're looking to dodge, and unfortunately for Chris, he is unable to do that, assuming that Trey wants to deploy that this turn, because he doesn't actually have to. He can play Frostburn Weird this turn, and then make a bigger Master of Waves the following turn if he'd like.
Landing Master here with Chris already under the gun seems pretty attractive to me. The additional 2 tokens here doesn't feel like that meaningful because Chris has to either kill Master or it's bust. But it looks like Trey also has an incentive to try to evolve his Raptor one more time, and so he's going to hold off firing off that Master of Waves one more turn.
Yeah, he wants to make it as big as he possibly can. Also has the opportunity to attack with a Frostborn, and I think what that's going to force is Elvish Mystic to probably go on chump blocking duty, depending on where he does send the creatures, of course.
I think it's likely that he's going after Xenagos here, and he has to be concerned about Mortars getting overloaded, so the mana ability on Xenagos is potentially something that Trey's quite worried about.
Yeah, Mortar Overload here is the big issue for Trey because it's going to clear everything up. See, Trey's going to take a look at Xenagos and all the abilities of that card. So we will do the same here. Of course, generate a ton of red and green mana with the +1 ability, 2/2 Satyr for the 0 ability, and the ultimate doesn't come up a ton. I know Chris said that he has used it in the past, but oftentimes he's just putting Satyrs into play and generating mana for Monstrosity.
Yeah, the board has to be empty for so many turns for you to be able to go ultimate with Xenagos, and in that world, you're often better off just making 2/2s every turn. Yeah. So it's pretty corner case for the ultimate to come up.
So VanMeter is going to put the Scavenging Ooze in front of the Frostburn Weird, saying he values the Elvish Mystic very, very highly.
Yep. And the second news is not really adding a ton to his board.
Yeah. So Xenagos is going to go down to 1. Frostborn is going to finish off the Scavenging Ooze with 1 activation, and VanMeter is going to quickly untap and draw here. So, of course, he's looking for Mysium Mortars if he can find one. He draws a Boon Satyr for the turn, not the best draw in the world. Again, you do see his hand of Stormbearer Dragon, Boon Satyr, and Gorkland Rampager. So he's going to be able to deploy some things here, which is good for him. And Xenagos is going to be able to add 2 mana, so 2 plus the Mystic is 3, 4, 5, 6. Have access to 7 mana. I guess he could just play. He could play Rampager and Boonsader, or he could just play Dragon. Doesn't seem like the best turn, honestly.
Yeah, he's a little short of being able to do multiple awesome things with his mana this turn. So it wouldn't surprise me if he actually just ends up making a 2/2 here, concedes that he's going to lose the Xenagos in combat next turn, and just add to his board that way.
Yeah. The start is going to be a Boonsader.
I guess he can add. Now he can add a
Oh
ton.
yes, yeah, he can do this and play a Dragon.
Right.
Okay. Miss that interaction here. Boonsader effectively costing 2 mana.
Right. We should be on the ball with that stuff because Nick does some of the same stuff sometimes, but haven't seen it through Xenagos yet.
All right, so 3 mana, 4 and 5 Trey, making sure he knows exactly how everything works there with Xenagos. You do see now everything is kosher, and VanMeter is going to pass the turn back to Van Cleave, who again has Master of Waves and Island in his hand, is going to take a draw step here. And that's a Cloudfin Raptor. So again, needs to decide how he wants to kind of navigate this turn. He can play a Cloudfin Raptor and a Master, but then his Frostmortars won't be able to spin and try to kill some things because he won't have the necessary mana to do that. Or does he want to attack first? If so, with what and where?
Yeah, attacking is a pretty rough proposition this turn. I think that if I'm in Trey spot, I just say, all right, well, I need to dodge mortars for 1 turn, play my Raptor and play my Master, and then next turn almost certainly kill Chris if he doesn't find Mizium mortars.
Starts by playing an island.
Because last turn was such a juicy spot for Chris to mortars if he could. Seems safe to assume that it's not in his hand.
Yeah, it seems like the easiest turn is just playing Raptor and a Master, and getting 2 evolve triggers.
I also don't know what. I guess I also don't know what Trey's hand. I don't think Trey's hand allows him to take a different path of action.
Sure. And plus, I mean, the other thing too is he's just going to get so much. He's going to get so many tokens that it forces Chris's hand on drawing Mortars or Pelucranos right away, or he's basically dead.
Trey again rereading.
Something that's obviously smart to do. You want to make sure you know how the cards work. You don't want to assume that you know how Xenagos works and you're wrong about that. So there's the Raptor, and then there's the Master of Waves. 2 triggers. He's going to get 2, 4. He's going to get 2, 4, 6.
9 tokens.
7,
it
8,
appears.
9 tokens. Yeah.
Let's see if we're equipped with that many.
Oh, we are. Oh!
Are we short 1?
No way. Yep, we're short 1.
Bummer.
What a bummer. All right, well, 9 tokens are going to come in. There's your double evolution of the Cloudfin Raptor. 1 from Master coming into play, 2nd from the Elemental. That's a 2/1 when it comes into play. So there's a 3/4. There's a 3/4 Cloudfin Raptor and a 2/3.
And I would assume Trey is not going to attack and just cross his fingers for 1 turn.
Pelucranos or Mortars? What's it going to be for VanMeter? Chris takes a draw. It is a stomping ground.
So,
is there anything he can do to get back into this? You know, he does have some life that he can gain with the Scavenging Ooze, but he's going to be attacked by 9 2-power creatures. You can see if he puts the 3 creatures, I guess 4 with the Satyr. Kind of mutable too. He might not be dead next turn. Could be wrong about that, but he might not be dead.
Well, he has 4 blockers. So 5 tokens come through at minimum. Yeah, I think he's well. So his best blocks are on the 3/4 Cloudfin Raptor and the 2 Frostburn Weirds, I guess.
That's what it looks like.
Which leaves 3, 8. It's like pretty far past lethal, I think, if he doesn't do anything else.
3, 4, 5. Yeah. I think I'm with you on that one. It's going to be a hard game for Chris to win. He's got a Rampager. He's got Scavenging Ooze that I think he can gain at least 1 life with. You see, he's going to take a look at his sideboard here. He's going to, grab a Satyr token out of his sideboard. Now he's going to cast Gorkland Rampager. He's got a green mana available via the Mystic. to be able to activate Scav News just past the turn back. So it's basically saying, all right, you can kill me, kill me.
Yep. We're all face up here. Chris has the ability again to gain 1 life off of that ooze.
And Trey has no cards in his hand, so mystery card here.
So Chris with access to +1 life, which puts him at 16, and 5 blockers.
Biggest block, again, all we do when we count the math here is we just count him blocking the biggest creatures, which would be Frostborn Weird, the 3/4 Cloudfin Raptor, and then 2 tokens. So that means it's 7 into his 14, 15, 16 from the other Cloudfin Raptor, 17, 18 from the Master, 19, 20 from the Tidebinder Mage. Yeah, so I think it's safe to just turn everyone sideways here if you're Van Cleave. We'll see if he sees that attack though.
Trey checking and rechecking here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think an Alpha Strike is safely a lethal attack here from Trey.
Better safe than sorry. That's what I say.
Yep. And there's the concession. So Trey quickly up the game. Again on the back of Cloudfin Raptor. We've seen this a couple times now out of the red-green monster deck. Fast Cloudfin Raptor is not a lot of outs. We're looking at basically Mizium Mortars. The Stormbreath Dragon has kind of been out. A couple other
kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Maybe Domery plus X, but this is not the first game we've seen kind of go down in similar fashion.
Take a look at the sideboards here. We'll start with VanMeter since he's going to be on the play. I've got 1 Rurik Thar, 4 Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Destructive Revelry, 2 Shock, 2 Plummet, 2 Mizium Mortars, 2 Chandra Pyromasters. Of course, if you guys do want to find out more about Chris's deck, of course, go to our coverage page where we have done a deck tech with him. Brian Brundwin also playing the exact same 75 into the top 8 here. But 4 Mistcutter Hydras are the easy ones to board in. 2 copies of Shocker, perfectly fine taking care of Tidebinder Mages and there are other targets here. 2 copies of Plummet, I mean, they do have some targets. I don't know if they have the best of targets here. 2 more additional copies of Mizium Mortars. Well, we just saw in that last game that Chris really wanted to draw a single Mizium Mortars to get back in that game, so I can imagine that he'd want to add the last 2, and then the 2 Chandras I don't think he's going to want in this matchup. So he's definitely got some options. Mistcutter Hydra, the best of them.
Yeah. Trey has a single copy of Curse of the Swine, which I think is probably excellent in this matchup. He has a Dispel, doesn't really want here. Jace, I would be surprised if he wanted here, as Chris's creatures are so large. 3 costs, he's a Domestication in a lot of plays. A Biden, the game feels a little bit more about what's happening on the board and not trying to outcard him. A Negate, it wouldn't stun me to see a Negate come in as it covers against Mizium Mortars, but it is a little bit narrow. Chris's deck, obviously, majority creatures. 3 Dissolves feel a little cumbersome, and 4 copies of Gainsay, not really appropriate here. So besides Curse of the Swine, it wouldn't really surprise me to see Trey really touch nothing in his sideboard, although I think there's an argument for a little bit of extra permission coming in as well.
Of course, if you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, last round of the day here in Indianapolis, Star City Games Open Series, first stop of the year. We're winding down on the day, as we do see Trey Van Cleave is up a game here against Chris VanMeter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGINDY for your tweets for the rest of this evening and all day tomorrow. This is the last round of the day. Of course, we'll be doing our quarterfinals, our semifinals, and our finals tomorrow. As that's what we do when we have an 11-round tournament. We don't want to be stuck here all evening when everything's closed down besides the old Steak and Shake, which I would go visit anyway.
Yeah, obviously just gonna snap that off.
I would love a steak and a shake.
Yeah, they serve both.
They do have both.
They have both.
They are nutritious and delicious.
Yeah, among other things.
Yeah, so make sure that you guys do join us tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. Again, we've basically got our top 8 locked here. So what we're going to do at the conclusion of this match is we'll do a brief wrap-up, come back tomorrow morning, do our bracket breakdown for you guys of the 8 players, the seeds, the archetypes, our predictions, all of that stuff. Quarterfinals, we'll play. We'll give away 3 months of premium. Semifinals, 6 months of premium. Finals, the full year. Again, this matchup here only has Open Series points implications, as we do have our top 8 locked here. Among the people in the top 8, Raymond Perez, Owen Turtenwald, Brian Brondwin, and Andrew Shrout.
I believe there might be a couple of ducats on the line as well. Perhaps $50 or $100.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
A bone or 2.
Yeah.
On the line. That's what the cool kids say.
Bones or clams or whatever it is you people call them.
Yeah, you.
Big Lebowski, no takers? All right, whatever.
I haven't seen the movie enough.
Okay.
I will openly admit that. I've seen it a decent amount in college. The only line I really ever quote from that movie is "the bums always lose."
Yeah.
So obviously the movie's great though.
Yeah, I regularly quote quite a few lines out of that one.
As you should.
The bums lose is high on the list.
Yeah, the bums always lose, Sullivan. They always lose. So it looks like both players finishing shuffling up here before we do start the second game here in this matchup. Van Cleave, of course, on Mono Blue Devotion. Game one via Master of Waves. VanMeter, Green Red Monsters, a deck that Brian Brondwin did take to the top 8. Both players playing the exact same 75. Can't find that deck tech on our coverage page. Probably run it again tomorrow for you guys as well, as a lot of people have been asking about this deck. VanMeter also did win a Super IQ with this a couple weeks ago, and he wrote an article about it on Star City Games on Wednesday. So if you want to find out more information about that, you can certainly head over there and hear it from the master himself.
I suspect after watching this green-red monster deck on camera all day that the mono-blue devotion matchup is actually not particularly good. Now that said, the red-green monster deck has certainly some tools, and mono-blue devotion is one of the decks with the highest skill cap in the format. I think you can definitely tell the difference between skilled pilots and less skilled pilots. But it feels like Cloudfin Raptor plus the other tempo stuff that's going on here is a pretty tough recipe for red-green at least game one.
I definitely agree with you. It feels like this matchup would probably be good for Chris. Pelucranos is insane in this matchup, and I think that he has plenty of good tools. I just don't think that he really... It's easy to say he drew the wrong half of his deck, but I mean, like, his draw was a draw that I think he would want in particular matchups. I think he just didn't want it in that one.
I think part of the problem is I feel like the red-green deck is conceding too much of the early game, where the blue deck is able to get out on top pretty fast. And Cloudfin Raptor with backed up by Tidebinder Mage and Frostborn Weird are just the red-green deck gets on the back foot, and there's not all the time in the world to deploy additional threat to recover from the hole that you dig yourself in early on.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense. VanMeter looks like he's going to send it back. We'll see if Van Cleave wants to do the same.
I don't know if you feel that way about the skill cap part of mono blue, but that's definitely been my experience.
I don't think I agree on the skill cap part, but it's more skill intensive, I think, than people think.
I was just playing a lot of Red White Burn online, winning comfortably over half of my matches against Mono Blue Devotion, feeling like this matchup's really sweet. Ran into Sam Party, he mulliganed to 4 and easily crushed me. Just game wasn't actually even really that close. So that caused me to reevaluate my take on how good that matchup actually was.
Would you say it was party time?
For one of us.
Sam and I trade jabs at each other when we see each other at tournaments. I always say it's party time. He calls me Cedric the Entertainer.
Okay.
And we just decide every time we do it, we're like, why do we do this to each other? We both hate this so much.
Yeah, and neither is particularly clever.
No.
That's the other thing about
that's
this.
That's the reason that we do it.
His name is, like, phonetically just Party, so
yes.
That's the joke. And your name is Cedric, so I guess that's the joke.
Yeah.
it's you know, we're pretty dry here, I feel like.
We're real innovators.
You can give that one up. I feel like you can give that joke up.
He started it.
Well, that's, I mean, I guess, sure, but that's not.
He didn't have to call me Cedric the Entertainer. I wouldn't call him Party Time if he didn't start it. All right?
And in fairness, I think he calls himself Party Time. So.
On occasion. On occasion. VanMeter happy enough with his 6, I think?
We're not here to assign blame, but it's his fault.
Yeah. Gonna start with an untapped Stomping Grounds and an Elvish Mystic.
So Chris has a pretty solid hand here. It looks like another land, a Shock, a Boonsitter, and a Pelucranos. So a good recipe. He has something to fend off the early pressure, and one of his power cards in Pelucranos.
Another Elvish Mystic here for VanMeter, so he can actually work his way up to that Pelucranos. Temple of Abandon off of the top. Take a look at a Mutavault there. Leave it on top. And I think you're safe to attack with the Mystic and play the other one, probably. Not 100% sure about it, because there's a chance that he might want to just leave up the Shock. So that if a Tidebinder Mage comes into play, yeah, that's what I think he's going to do. Pass the turn back.
Casting the elf.
Yeah, he's just going to pass. He's going to cast the elf and leave the Shock up for a Tidebinder Mage. And I kind of like this play because not only does it kill the Mage, but it also slows down Devotion. Now, if it's Frostburn Weird, it's not as good, and that's exactly what it ends up being. But at the same time, Chris doesn't really care very much about a Frostburn Mage.
You're giving up 1 point of damage to ensure that you get to get this line, so this seems worth it to me.
And there is a Pelucranos. He's going to pass the turn back. So Van Cleave going to tap the 2 islands, start his turn with the Frostburn Weird, and take a draw step. He finds a copy of Thassa, but he's immediately underneath the gun. And you can see exactly how good VanMeter's deck is when he has Mana Acceleration as opposed to when he doesn't.
Yes.
It's night and day.
Yeah, it's a lot of parallels can be drawn by watching the mono blue devotion deck where it doesn't doesn't have as early setup, as low impact as those cards can be. Just spending its mana and building up devotion is a valuable thing to do, almost no matter what the permanents say on them. And when the mono blue devotion deck goes 1-drop, 2-drop versus the games that doesn't, you can really tell the difference. And the mana creature draws are very similar here.
So Thassa's going to come into play. Cleave feels the need to actually get this set up here. So it's kind of like taking a turn off, but not really, because it probably is going to turn to a 5/5 next turn.
Yeah, he gets to recoup this tempo at somewhere else down the line, and playing the Night Veil Spectre is opening yourself up to all sorts of really bad turns.
Yeah.
So I like this approach. It looks a little rough this turn, but I think it's going to pay dividends in subsequent turns for Trey.
See, VanMeter still has a shock in his hand, so I think an attack with the old Mutavault is kind of appetizing here.
He might want to suit up the Polukranos this turn.
Can also suit up an elf too, make it so that he has 2 relevant threats.
Yeah.
Not move all in on Polukranos. Makes for definitely an interesting decision. Yeah, I kind of like this.
Diversify his portfolio a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a pretty clear attack if you're informed on the format that, hey, I have a Boon Satyr or I have a Gore Clan Rampager, so you should just take this 1 damage. But at the same time, I mean, you can catch a birdie.
He also just might be casting Boon Satyr this turn regardless.
Yes.
So if Trey wants to block with the weird, that's awesome. And if not, well, it didn't cost you anything.
Yeah, and you still get to push through a whole bunch of damage and put Trey on the back foot in a big way. That's exactly what's going to happen. So Boon Satyr is going to be bestowed upon that Elvish Mystic.
That's a 10-ball.
That is a 10-ball.
No big deal. That's just 10.
Puts you to 9. Monsters is appropriate for the name of this deck, as Van Cleave's going to untap. He'll start by scrying with his god. Consult his hand as he looks at the card, and we'll see where it goes.
So what are the cards that Trey's looking for right now? I guess Rapid Hybridization and Curse of the Swine are high on the list?
I would say those are the highest on the list. Of course, I mean, Cyclonic Rift is like okay.
Sure.
It's not exciting, but it's not bad. He's going to put the top card on the bottom and take a draw here. Draws another copy of Thassa. It's just fine, but yeah, I think it's those 2 cards that you did mention. And again, Rapid Hybridization isn't great either.
Yeah, it's just
it's
okay.
Fine,
it's just okay.
Curse of the Swine is probably the best of the bunch, and again, I feel like that is just fine.
Right. I mean, Hybridization would be very good here as it allows him to play Night Veil Spectre and Hybridization.
And have the god on, too.
Right.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm not a big fan of Jace this turn. I mean, Jace is interesting because, like, you can up it and it turns on Thassa for the necessary devotion, so it's definitely not a bad play for the turn, as Trey's checking to see how many cards VanMeter has. So it's not a bad turn, but it's just not exciting.
Yeah. Trey is opening himself up to a lot of risk with this play. I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad, but he's really leaning on this Frostborn Weird getting to survive because the whole house of cards collapses if it dies. Thassa gets shut off. Jace presumably dies in combat. There's a lot of pretty bad consequences here. That's assuming that Chris doesn't just kill Trey, which is also potentially on the table as well.
Flesh Blood, the draw. That's going to change some things.
I assume that's really powerful here.
Yes. Yes, it is. The Blood Half being the more powerful of the 2. Certainly also the only one that it can cast. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power target creature or player. So he can kill that Frostburn Weird with the Blood Half. Fire up Mutavault, get into the red zone with everybody. Thassa won't be able to block, and we're looking at attack for 4,
or
8,
because
9.
Jace is minus ones everything in combat, he actually might be better off just blooding Jace, dealing 5 to Jace, because he still has 4 power attackers that the Weird can't block.
Okay. So he's going to do.
Okay, sure.
He's going to do this.
Oh, yeah, shock in hand, so I guess this is lethal regardless.
Yeah, shock is lethal, yeah. So what you do, Elvish Mystic activates Mutavault because they can't attack. Mutavault gets in along with the 5 power elf, which will be a 4.
Right.
Polukranos is a 4, normally a 5, but a 4, so that's 4, 8, 9, then shock makes it 11.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways for Chris to set this all up there.
Flesh Blood was the check mark, though.
Yes.
That's the card that gets the job done there. Missing Mortars, I think, would have also gotten the job done, but you saw Chris go figure out exactly what I need to do to actually get the job done here. Trigger goes on the stack for the Jace. You've got 4 from Polukranos, 4 from the Elvish Mystic, 1 from the Mutavault. That's 9. Shock makes it 11. Van Cleave's at 10. I'm not a math major, but that's...
I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah, but that's the Game Boys, as they say.
And so that was a really good display, those first 2 games, of what the red green monster deck looks like when it has an accelerant and a good curve versus the games that it doesn't.
Yes. I think a very, very nice display, as you did mention. So, they're even up here between VanMeter and Van Cleave, the Battle of Vans.
They're going to sell it for once and for all. The loser has to change their name. The winner can continue being called VanMeter or Van Cleave, as appropriate.
It's a loser leaves town match.
Right.
I like it.
I'm a big fan.
Those are my favorite matches.
I wish you could actually challenge people. There years ago, I was advocating for a change to organized play where you could challenge someone to a retirement match. It would be sanctioned, and the loser would they would just get a lifetime ban.
Okay.
So if you no longer, and if they decline the challenge, that's fine. You just get to brag that you challenged them to a retirement match. They were willing to take it.
And they would not take
Otherwise, loser just perma life banned.
I like that. I could really see that just being an absolutely enjoyable experience.
Could you imagine how many people would be on the rail for a retirement match?
A ton.
Yeah.
The amount of trash talk that would take place.
Be insane.
Yeah. It'd be really, really good. Best of 5, maybe? You just want to be stone cold and have it be a one-game match.
I think the players figure it out.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
One-game match, no mulligans.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Got to run it straight.
I like it.
Yeah.
You are out of here for good.
Yeah.
Kept the no-lander, huh? Stupid. Should have mulliganed.
And then you could go to the suspended players list, and you could have reason for suspension, just retirement, just all the people.
Lost to a top deck bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Missed my second land drop. Whatever.
This is something we could get. I think we can get it worked in here.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't sound like the people over in the OP department at Wizards was too amenable to the idea of a retirement match.
Got to be a little more open-minded, I think. I think that's the key.
Not really in the spirit of Magic's organized play, so.
But it's in the spirit of competition.
Yes, that's true.
And
maybe
that's
I
what
just
I think matters the most.
It's possible I didn't do a very good job of selling it. Maybe
I think you're doing a great job now. I don't know what your sales tactic was previously.
Yeah.
But I would be buying all the stock in this that I could.
Right. I think my tactic before was I'm not really that interested in playing competitive Magic anymore.
Okay.
There's people I dislike. Can we make this a thing? Which maybe again I totally accept that the fault lies with me in the presentation. I'm not saying that anyone else's fault, but I would like to try to get this back on the radar as something to pick up.
Well, if Aaron Forsyth and company are watching at home, you're not a hard guy to find. It's Basic Mountain on Twitter.
You want to see the coverage numbers go up?
Yeah,
you want to see more people tune in? You have retirement matches. Loser leaves town.
So at Basic Mountain for feedback on the loser leaves town.
How about we compromise a little bit? No lifetime, but it could be a year, 18 months, whatever the case.
Okay.
You gotta leave town for a little while.
Just a short break.
Right. You gotta take some time off. Maybe a lifetime ban is too extreme. I get that.
Depends on who you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Depends on who you are. See, VanMeter is gotta look at his opening 7 here. Patrick. The old LLT match. always a great topic of conversation. Yeah. Almost as good as Wesco doing a crossover.
Yeah.
VanMeter is going to send a mulligan back.
Yeah. Looks like Trey kept 4 lands, 2 of them Mutavaults, a Tiebinder Mage, some of that action, so a little land heavy, but Tiebinder Mage has to be one of Trey's most valuable cards of this matchup.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to mulligan a hand that has that, 2 islands, and anything else going on.
Yeah, I mean, the hand's perfectly fine. Obviously, the draw steps, he can find a Thassa, Master of Waves, or what have you, and really just kind of put them things together. But
the old implied
with him being on the play, having a Tiebinder Mage, he can slow down the mana acceleration of VanMeter's deck, and that's exactly where he wants to be, of course.
I always like that the implied 10-card hand argument for not mulliganing. It's like, well, you still have draw steps. That could be the best card you can imagine.
Have you never run perfect before?
Oh, I have, of course. I'm just. I always like that when people couch the argument.
Yeah,
that
keep
way.
the virtual 10.
Yeah.
Well, I could draw this.
I have draw steps, so it's basically a 10-card hand. How do you mulligan that?
And I know what I'm going to draw.
Right. It's going to be Thassa, Master, another Master, or whatever.
Dead.
Scry away a land, draw a Master.
Yeah. See, that makes sense because Thassa controls everything.
Right, exactly.
So, VanMeter going to lay out 6. We'll see what he's able to find. Is he happy? He said sure.
Yep.
Doesn't sound thrilled about it, but good enough as Van Cleve's going to lead up an island and pass the turn back here. There is your Elvis Mystic, and this is why the Tidebinder Mage is going to be at its absolute best right now.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than this.
Shut that Elvish Mystic down, especially when you take a mulligan. There's an Elvish Mystic right off the top, and yeah, VanMeter is in a world of trouble right now. Van Cleve's going to draw a card. It's a Dissolve.
Brought in some counter spells. Maybe this is only a thing while he's on the play here, but definitely there's a lot of expensive spells in Chris's deck, and I think making himself a little more durable against Mizium Mortars is worth having a kind of inefficient counterspell.
Yeah, and I think especially because he's on the play, he can set up a game state where he is ahead on the board and just has to Dissolve at the ready to counter the thing that Chris is trying to catch back up with here. As VanMeter does draw a land off the top, going to play a Sylvan Caryatid and attack for a 1Z with that Elvish Mystic.
So at least he'll have access to red mana, which is pretty valuable here.
Yes. Good blocker, too. Little scry action here with the God of the Sea. We'll see if Van Cleave has found what he's looking for yet. He's going to put that card on the bottom. So we'll take a draw. It's a Frostburn Weird, so Devotion can go to 5. Thassa can be turned on right now.
Yep. A lot of different cards in Trey's deck that turns it on right now. So
no third island yet, though, for Van Cleave. So can't deploy the Nightveil Spectre, which isn't an ace in this matchup anyway. You can argue that Frostburn Weird is a better card here, but it looks like he's got other plans in mind. Tapping 4 mana, maybe a Jace?
I like Jace a lot here as it turns Devotion on and develops his board without potentially extending into additional sweepers. So,
and it's also very, very difficult for VanMeter to kill right now, too. He's so slow out of the gates right now. He's got 2 1-power creatures and an 0-3, so basically 3 creatures with no power. It's obviously a very, very good spot for him to be in. If you're Van Cleave, of course.
Yes. And Trey deciding whether or not to plus it, even though there's not going to be that much attacking going on, to try to make the Jace as durable as possible, or to minus it right now and try to find some action.
I'm trying to figure out exactly how he does want to use that Architect of Thought.
Because Trey's hand actually isn't really that good right now. He's got 2 Frostburn Weirds and a Nightveil Spectre that he can't cast, so there is definitely something attractive about trying to find more stuff to do.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because it also commits VanMeter's turn to being attack it with my Elvish Mystic or something of that nature, and I need to have like a Gorkline Rampager to get past the Tidebinder Mage, like stuff like that, where it makes it very, very difficult. So it might be worth it just to try to get 2 cards right now, because the likelihood of that Jace dying, it seems like it's pretty low.
The biggest problem if he minuses here is probably Xenagos, because that means that Jace either dies or he has to chump block or trade rather with the Tidebinder Mage, something he's loath to do. So Trey's going to take a slightly more conservative tact and just plus the Jace here.
Yeah, I think that's the best word to use, is a more conservative approach here. By just plussing Jace, making sure that it can't die, as Mistcutter Hydra is going to come off the top here for VanMeter. That's a card that could also have killed it if it did minus, that we didn't even add into the equation here. Chris does have red mana now with that Sylvan Caryatid. He just needs to find ways to use it. He does have a Gorkline Rampager in his hand as well.
The problem is that everything that Chris does takes his entire turn. He can't really play 2 spells here. I guess he can play another Sylvan Caryatid and Mortar or something, but he's going to be slipping further underneath this Jace and this Thassa. And
those are 2 cards that are so hard to come back from.
Yeah, Chris is already at 13. It's not like he can sit around all day and just take these Thassa hits.
5's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot of damage. All right, so Mistcutter Hydra is going to come into play. It's a 1-power guy.
Yep. And this basically, right now Trey is really taxed on blue mana, as we've seen. So this puts him in a spot where if he wants to use Thassa to make it unblockable, which he has to now because the Hydra's in play, it probably comes at the expense of him casting spells.
So a little scry action to start things off here for Van Cleave. See if, again, he finds what he's looking for.
Trey taking his time here. Sure. He has a lot of really attractive draws at this point, and Island is also really good for him.
Yeah,
so.
he's obviously in the enviable situation where not only is an island good for him, or most draws are good for him, a land or a spell, but he also gets to control which one he draws. You see an island added to his hand for the turn.
And it wouldn't surprise me to see Trey's turn just be plus Jace, make my Thassa unblockable, hit you, say go with Dissolve back up.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Creatures don't add a lot to the board. He's, again, the threat of Mortars getting overloaded is now another thing that Trey has to worry about here, and it feels like he can just keep clocking. Although it looks like he's tapping 2 blues, so perhaps he's adding to his board this turn. No, he's retapping.
What is he up to here? Just going to make it unblockable? Okay, that's fine.
Again, just playing defense with that Dissolve in his hand. I would expect him to plus Jace. Just try to make his board as difficult to break up the Devotion as possible. He has Chris on a 2-turn clock here.
That's basically what he's accomplishing right now, too. It's just making it almost impossible to get towards Jace and stopping Thassa. And now, of course, Trey could give him more things to the board if he wants to, but he doesn't really feel the need to. But he's going to actually he's going to move down with the Jace.
His Jace is pretty well protected right now since Chris has not a lot going on, so.
Funny, that Dissolve being turned over there might be either the best or worst possible thing here for Van Cleave in this situation where it's not really something where the mono blue deck has Dissolve in their deck. It's definitely a play style thing, and Dissolve is not the standard, especially if you go by a list, like Sam Black plays.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ever play Dissolve. He doesn't have counter spells except for Gainsay most of the time, maybe negates in his sideboard, whatever. But he's not a player that actually plays Dissolves. Now, if you're Van Cleave, shoot, I revealed Dissolve. So now my opponent knows that I have them in my deck, and this 3 mana that I've left up is pretty clear representation that I have one in my hand.
Yeah, this is a pretty, especially now that he's likely to not take the Dissolve pile, it's a pretty loud indicator, the way he's played this turn, the way he's tapped his mana, all of that there's a counterspell looping. Now, it may not actually end up mattering very much because Chris's hand is what he is. He's on a 2-turn clock.
Mm-hmm.
He might not have the luxury of playing around anything. But
yeah, just the tough part here is that Trey was trying to set a trap with the Dissolve that was in his hand, and now it's kind of like the jig is up a little bit here because Jace revealed a Dissolve. So now he's just going to take the Dissolve and just leave that up still.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a chance that VanMeter doesn't play around a second Dissolve. But also when you're leaving up, when Mono Blue is leaving up mana like this, exactly like the way that Trey is, and you know that they have 1 Dissolve in their deck, if Trey does that again the following turn, it's like, oh, you have another Dissolve. But at the same time, can he beat a second Dissolve? Maybe not.
Yeah, it seems challenging. Although it looks like Chris has just drawn another copy of Mizium Orders, which allows him to point 2 removal spells of the Tiebinder Mage this turn.
Not so bad. Baby steps.
But, Chris does have a lot of backup in his hand to get that Thassa turn back on. But
yeah, and that's not hard for Trey to do.
And for all the creatures that Chris has in play, he can't really pressure that Jace.
Yeah. Most of his creatures are lands at this point.
He has.
They look like creatures, but they're actually just tapping for mana.
He has 4 active creatures, total sum of 2 power.
Yeah. Impressive stuff.
Nice. Dude, nice.
Yeah. In this day and age of Pelucrinoses and Spirit Mongers and everything else, 4 creatures, 2 power. All right. Chris coming out of the tank. Looks like he's coming to a decision. The decision is attack somewhere. We'll figure out if it's going towards Jace or if it's going towards Johnson. I imagine Jace.
Yeah, I think Chris, now that he is aware of the Dissolve, is going to try to use his turn Gore Clan Rampaging instead, because that is not a spell, so it can't be countered.
Yep.
You can get the Jace off the table.
Question is, does he have to attack with both creatures? I guess yes,
there's a
because
blocking Mutavault.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes that attack good. Thought there for a moment that he wouldn't need to do that, but yeah, it actually makes it a good attack.
He also may want to, I think it's fine to send the extra creature here, basically.
I almost think it's just correct to send the extra creature. For a moment I didn't, but now it makes perfect sense. See if Chris wants to use the Gore Clan Rampager. I imagine that will be the case. Let's see if Trey does want to do any blocking or not. He's just going to let it go down to 1. Okay. It looks like he was trying to induce there, and it didn't work.
Curious there that... Okay, I guess he's just trying to fire. Chris is just going to try to fire off 2 mortars right now.
Oh, there's a fire. I think you got to counter this if you're Trey.
Yeah, that's... Because Chris could just say go here, and his turn's been reasonably productive. So, you know, if you don't use your mana this way, you might not get to use it at all this turn.
Yeah. The other thing too is if he counters this Mortars, and then Chris fires off the other Mortars to take care of the Tidebinder Mage, Trey can play like a Frostburn Weird. He can find a land with Thassa, play like a Frostburn Weird, and then fire both Mutavaults and attack for lethal.
Yeah.
So I think you almost have to dissolve here, and that's going to resolve. Trey's going to scry. Now there's no guarantee that Chris is going to actually cast this other Mortars and maybe wants to have a blocker back. But I think we're in the same situation, right? Because, you know, you make Thassa unblockable, you fire up 2 Mutavaults, so you put your opponent down to 3, and then you've got Tidebinder, you've got Tidebinder double Mutavault attacking. Yeah, so he's going to take care of the Tidebinder Mage here, and if Trey's able to find a land, he can play a Frostburn Weird, have Devotion, 2 from the Jace, 2 from the Weird, 1 from the Thassa, and then activate both Mutavaults and make for a lethal attack.
Yeah. I think that if I was in Chris's spot, I would have preferred just using a Rampager this turn and not casting a spell into the dissolve, leaving as many blockers back as possible.
You see Van Cleave immediately put the island into play. So, yeah, if he navigates his turn correctly, there's your Devotion, yeah, and VanMeter immediately concedes the game once he sees Frostburn hit the table. So Trey Van Cleave is going to win this match over Chris VanMeter, move on to 8-2-1. VanMeter picks up his 4th loss on the week, and he's going to end the tournament at 7-4. Not sure how many Open Series points he's going to